Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Fandom track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about Baby the Impala. But before we get into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Alice.
Even at work, it always starts with me, maybe because it's the A. But hi, I'm Alice.
You were in the first little box on the Brady Bunch grid next to me, so you're technically my friend.
So that's how it worked. Well, I'm Alice Jester from the Winchester family business. If I had to pick a favorite character, it would be Baby. But I've been a car nut my whole life. Growing up in Detroit does that. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Lynn.
I'm Dr. Lynn Zubernis. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor at Westchester University. And one of my research areas, probably my biggest research area, is the psychology of fandom. I've written lots of books on fandom. A lot of them are about supernatural and fandom. The most recent 2 books that I've written were written with the supernatural actors and fans. Those are, I happen to just have them, Family Don't End with Blood, which has Baby, of course, on the cover. And There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, which, oh, look, also has Baby on the cover. That's how important Baby is to this show.
Oh, absolutely. Michelle.
Hi, all. I am Michelle Crowley. I am a lecturer of communication studies and pop culture at Northern Kentucky University. I am a general car nut. I've grown up around classic cars and restoring old cars. And even though immediately my family that loves old cars said, wow, why do you want a boat like that? Baby really has a good spot in my heart, and soon hopefully to be a spot in my driveway.
Very nice. Wrenn?
Well, I'm also a longtime car nut. Grew up with a father who was a car nut. My first husband was a car mechanic and a car nut. I grew up driving boats like that because my father owned them. Not an Impala though. Caddies and T-Birds and a bunch of other things, Oldsmobiles, all 60s, 70s, even into 80s cars. My husband was a Chevy and a Volkswagen guy. My father was a Ford guy. I was a Mopar girl for the most part. I had a 6 Dodge Dart that I restored when I was younger. I lost it in the divorce, unfortunately, and with my first husband. Anyway, and my second husband, this is basically the claim to supernatural stuff. He wrote the first, the third, and the fourth supernatural tie-in novels. So he wrote Nevermore, he wrote Bone Key, and he wrote Heart of the Dragon. I was not a fan of his writing before I met him. We just met through friends, but I am a fan of his writing now. That's about it. But I am really into cars, and I really like the specs. This is the specs on them and what they do and why and wherefore. And I really like Baby. Baby is interesting car, and we're going to talk more about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love Baby. I love the important role that the Impala plays in the series and how they really never were, in fact, homeless, and how central it is to the boys' thinking and the boys' entire lives. My dad had a secondhand 67 Cadillac Coupe de Ville and a 72 secondhand Eldorado. And I got to drive the Eldorado when I was 16. And I just remember this sprawling expanse of hood that went on and on and on. And then, you looked at the back and the trunk went just as far. Why would you put a 16-year-old in that hunk of Detroit steel?
Because 8 miles per gallon, 8 miles per gallon.
It was like driving, a tanker or a cruise ship or a bus.
That's why they put a 16-year-old in that, because you're driving a 21-foot giant steel box. Probably about the safest thing you probably can get into.
That engine boy, it could go. So I'll
Yeah, one of
admit I found it out.
One of the first cars that I drove, my dad had was a 76 Eldorado convertible. It's the last year of the convertible. We called it the Pitmobile because it was dark blue, red leather interior, red pinstriping. He bought it off one of the Campbell heirs, actually, he got it for a song. My father had this habit of picking up cars for songs. He would just throw out a lowball offer and they would say, yeah, sometimes, and he'd end up with it. But basically, yeah, this long, almost 20-foot long thing with this, it just did this on the road as you drove down the road. It was a yacht. It sort of rolled down the road at 8 miles per gallon.
Which just makes you wonder how much pool the boys had to hustle to keep gas in baby. That's they weren't fuel efficient. So, the Impala rolled off the line April 24th. So its birthday, as we speak here in April, is coming up. And what are your favorite episodes? Well, let's talk about the episode, Baby, and then we can get into other favorite episodes featuring Baby. But what about Baby is your favorite? Lynn?
I think my favorite thing about Baby is that it is just such a favorite episode of Jared and Jensen. Almost every time somebody asks them over the years about their favorite episode, Baby is always one of the episodes that they mention. And I think in part, after you've done so many episodes of television, to have something that was that innovative and that out of the box was just such a wonderful thing for them. It was something different. They both are interested enough in the technical aspects of filming that, they had all these fabulous, like intricate rigs on all their various Impalas to be able to film it. People are in the trunk with things like up above and it's half opened up. I mean, it is pretty fascinating. And I think the other thing that Jared and Jensen really enjoyed that they've talked about a lot is that because it was just the two of them in the Impala and it was from the Impala's point of view, for a lot of the filming, they just sent Jared and Jensen off in the Impala, nobody with them. They would slate it and start it and stop it and sort of do the whole thing on their own. And I think, they were experienced enough at that point that I think that was fun for them. So every time I watch it now, I can hear all of their little anecdotes about how much they enjoyed filming it. So I think that's my favorite thing about it at this point.
Jensen has said that the Impala goes really fast when he wants it to. So I think he tried that.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's not an original engine to that car. That engine didn't come out until after 71. But yeah, 502 big block.
Yeah, it has a lot of power. Michelle, how about you?
Sorry about my view before. My cat walked behind my chair and knocked the thing that made my chair
I've got two of them doing this kind of thing behind me. So
he's good at that. He learns how to annoy me. So when it comes to the show, the whole, as Lynn was saying, the aspects of the cinematography, so that the rigs that they set up on the car and just the different shots. And I think it's also, I think it's a really cool part of storytelling as well, because how often do we have a TV show where the car is such a central character and then we never actually got to see anything from her point of view until, was it season 11? When we got this episode that is completely from the car's point of view. And I think that was really cool and really unique when it comes to their choices and just how it was filmed and having this inanimate home really telling an entire episode. And but the way it was told, it didn't seem like it was new and it was jarring or anything. It was just like, all right, this is Tuesday at the office for Baby. And so I think that was just really cool how they just seamlessly moved into that kind of storytelling technique.
it is really inanimate, but is she really inanimate? They did a lot of angles and a lot of the sound cues that showed concern throughout that episode for what was going on around her. Mm-hmm. She watches over them as best as she can.
And we as the fandom kind of guessed that about the car because of just how much Dean loves her, and well, Sam does too. But yeah, having her as the inanimate object, but as the main storyteller. And then, because she is the protective, almost kind of mother-esque kind of character that the boys never had, you know, like you said, with the sounds and the angles and, you know, her watching over them, it's definitely gives a whole new perspective on the concept of the mother of supernatural. That's a whole other panel.
Okay. Wrenn, how about you?
Again, what I just introspected, the angles that they do, the actual show of almost they be able to convey concern in how they shot what was going on outside the car when things are not good for the brothers, how they shot the angles from the inside and what's going on, and the music that was going on and the sounds that were going on during the time. If you watch it again, I watched it a couple of times and it's really cool to watch. But Baby is an interesting character. She's also 8 days older than me, so you know, kind of feel a kindred.
Okay. Alice, how about you?
Well, for me, it was just so wildly creative, and everyone got to be part of it. You know, Robbie Thompson, the script was incredible, and he didn't really have to do much. It was day in the life of Baby, right? But it was so brilliant. But you know, everyone got into it, the cinematography, the directors, the crew, everyone, because they got to try things that they'd never had to try before. I just, you know, I'm an IT person, so I just geeked out over all the technical details that came out of that from the crew and everyone. And the one thing that was most interesting to me was there's no score. There's no background music. I mean, yeah, there was playing music like Night Moves, which I love Night Moves. And that was the perfect song for that. Other than that, there was no score. There was no soundtrack. So, and it felt more real. It felt more personal, you know?
It was the angles of the camera, though, the way the angles, they shifted when they were trying, like she was trying to see out the windows of what was going on out there. As the concern you saw in that is what I meant. But it was interesting. What's what people think about with that car? They think about, oh, it's just it's 67 Impala. They were like $5,000 when the show started. They were dime a dozen. They made 575,000 of them. But most people don't realize is that at the time period, they were a full-size luxury car. They matched power and luxury together. They were a luxury car. It was the first year for a number of safety features that were in it. They had a fully collapsible steering column, so if you got hit in the front, you were safer. They had dual master braking system. They had warning lamps. They had a four-way hazards. It was a luxury car at the time, but we don't think about that now when we see it. We think, oh, it's a 67 Impala. They were between $2,700 and $3,300 manufactured retail price, which today's numbers would be $22,000 to $27,000. So not a cheap car at all. Not by, you know, but we think of it, it's an Impala, but the Impala is really important to the show. But it was just a matter of, it was not a cheap car when it was new. It was
we're very lucky.
Relatively high end, but they made a lot of them.
Thanks to Dean's intervention and time travel, John ended up with the Impala instead of the Mystery Machine. So we can thank Dean for that.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, it was actually a 22 window bus. Not quite that. It's VW buses were actually worth more than the Impala was at the time. The $2,000 price in 1973 for that car, driven hard and put away by a Bible salesman. At 27 to 3,300 new, it would have been somewhere around $1,500 at that time period. That's one of the price things that was bad about the time period for it. I'm a number person. It was, it would not have been 2,000 unless the guy was trying to like take John for more money than it was worth. Possible.
Which it could have been. I think some of my favorites with Baby, I love the scene where, you know, they are sitting on I love seeing them try to sleep in the back. I'm still trying to figure that out. I've slept in the back of a car that size and I didn't really fit, and I'm a whole lot shorter than Sam.
Yeah.
So you know, I as a kid, we'd go on road trips. I slept in the back because we did that back then. It was comfy, but I rapidly outgrew the length. So I do sometimes think the boys are really squished up, sleeping like that. And then Dean in the front seat. My gosh, how do you get a 6'1" guy in the front seat with the steering wheel?
Yeah, it's
Um,
119-inch wheelbase. So yeah, it's
tight.
it's a full-size car for the time period. It was the large
Yeah.
fourth generation wheel design for the base, but yeah, it is only 119 inches wheelbase.
Well, and then, Sam in that front seat, it's a bench seat. So if Dean reaches the pedals, Sam's knees are in the glove compartment for most of his life.
Yeah.
So, I always kind of snicker on that. But I think one of my favorite things in Baby is the green cooler, which we got to see again on Walker. And oddly enough, it smelled funny. I wonder why. That werepire had just didn't do good things for it.
Yeah, I'm not certain about the whole knees in his chest one. I never really thought about who has the longer torso, because I've met people with wildly different lengths, torsos and legs of different heights. I don't know. Oh, actually, I don't know. Does Jared have a long torso or a short torso? Pictures, anybody? That would tell the difference.
I know this. I'm pretty sure he has a long torso and their legs are not that different. I don't know. I've heard them talk about this weirdly.
Okay, well, at least that makes me feel better that he isn't squished in the corner over there for 15 years or his entire life.
I squished
The
my
show
brother.
cars actually did not have floor panels in them.
I squished my my brother from another mother who was 6'6" into the front of my Corolla, the only seat he would fit in my Corolla, with the seat all the way back. So I understand the whole, what do you do with height in cars?
Okay. So now Baby was the quintessential Impala episode, but of course she's in every episode. So, well, except for a few lamentable episodes in season 7 where she was kind of in witness protection and we all missed her. But in most of and we'll just forget those, most of the episodes. So what are some of your favorite episodes involving Baby and why? Michelle?
I love it anytime they shove someone in the trunk. And kind of in comparison to the episode of Walker where Cordell was thrown in the back of the Bentley, I'm looking at that and I'm like, there is no way he's going to fit in the back of that Bentley. He totally, like 3 of them may fit in the back of the Impala. He ain't fitting in that Bentley. So I think it also ties in with the, I was not alive at this point, but I know that going to the drive-in theater and sneaking your friends in, putting them in the trunk of your car, hiding people as best as you could. I don't know, that to me, that's kind of like a romanticized view of 1970s, 1960s, 70s lifestyle, I guess. Like I said, I didn't live through it, but it's what you always see. I don't know, I just find it amusing whenever they open the trunk and it's like, hey, guess who's in here? Be it a random demon number 5 or be Crowley or whomever. That just always amuses me.
Okay. Wrenn, how about you?
I really don't. I'm trying to think what they would be. I like anyone that they're talking and they're sitting in the car and talking. I'm trying to think what my favorite would be. I'm not prepared for this question. I like in the first real one that hit me was when that he loves and loves and loves that car. And then for his brother, what? That's the one. When they crash it through the car, the first season, when they crash it through the rundown house, when you first did that, and there should have been a lot more damage than that, but hey, that's the reaction for both the characters when he crashes it through there. I like that part. That was probably my favorite time. That's when I first started looking at the car. Other than that, it's a car. I mean, we've seen cars in a lot of other TV shows. I mean, Angel has the Belvedere GTX, and Spike had his car too as well, and Buffy. But it hadn't yet become Baby at that point, but it became significant in how he cared about the car. From that point is when you see how he cared about the car. And for a car nut like me, who has loved cars and has owned cars they've loved, it was the first time I decided, well, Jensen is not just this very, very too pretty guy, because that's all I thought about. I preferred Jared at the time. I preferred Jensen now, but he wasn't just because he was too pretty. he wasn't just a super pretty car. He loved his car. He loved something that his father gave him, that kind of a thing.
Okay. I love the scene in Swan Song where it talks about them sitting on the Impala and staring at the stars. That's one of my very favorite pictures. And I loved how Dean took care of the Impala with that tarp over it while in the year that he was with Lisa, and how much it meant when he would go out to visit it, and how protective he was of it, and didn't want Ben touching anything. And then we see that again in the final episode with Sam and the Impala, and going out and sitting. I mean, it just broke me when he went out and sat in the car, and he was having silent conversations with the guy who wasn't there. And that really hit me in the heart, and good job, guys. That's exactly what they were trying to do. But I think those are some of the real landmark scenes for me, as well as that time that Dean finds out, watching Mary see the car, that everybody in his family has apparently had sex in the back seat of the Impala. That horrified realization that he might have been conceived there is just kind of.
What's interesting, it was an extremely good choice of car to do. As I said earlier, there's 575,000 of them were made. It was a very high number of cars to be made, especially in the 60s. So as someone who's had to try to source a 1-year only model, I had a 66 Dodge Dart 2-door postless. You could get parts for the Impala. You really can. So we have all of the show cars, but we also have, you can build your own, you can make your own, you can find your own Impala, 67 Impala. They're out there. They're not that uncommon. Even with the melting for scrap in the 70s after the price of gas went up, you still can find them, because they made over 500,000 of them.
Okay. Alice, what are some of your other favorites besides Baby?
Well, I like the ones where they use the brotherly talks by the Impala is a thing, all the big things. But I particularly liked it when they tried to take a beautiful cinematography, a shot, a scenery, we'll say cinematography, like they're out in the open, the children shouldn't play with dead things, clap your hands if you believe. I know there's more, plenty of episodes I can think of, but just where they're in this beautiful background and the Impala's right there and they're just sitting there talking. It's so added to the moment being there, because they're having the family moment out in the open, out in the wild, the way that's how they lived, and it just felt right.
Mm-hmm. Lynn, how about you?
Two things come to mind. It's interesting when you mentioned that first one, Wrenn, when the car in season 1 drove through the house in the pilot, that was the first time we've sort of we kind of flinched and we saw how much Dean cared about that. But in the finale, at the end of season 1, I remember watching it and how shocking it was when that tractor trailer just absolutely smashed the car. And by that time, we had come to love the car enough that it was horrible, of course, for the people who were in it. We were worried about them too. But there was a separate concern for the car, how dare they actually crush that car? It was absolutely shocking. So it was clear by that time how important the car was to the fandom. We didn't call it Baby yet. We called it the Metallic car back in those early seasons. That was the first thing. But even then, they used to say the Metallic car was the third lead. So there was an acknowledgement of how important it was. And then, Gail, you mentioned the finale, and I was thinking that too, that of course the show has to end. I mean, Baby is in the final scene of the show, because of course she is. Of course she's in heaven when Dean gets there. Of course that's what he wants to do, is drive Baby when he gets there. And of course, Sam doesn't actually cross over until Dean is there with the Impala to pick him up, and then they're back together with Baby. So I think it's just incredibly clear how important she was to the entire 15-year run of the show.
Well, we've seen pictures of, I know we've seen a picture of Jensen sitting in this weed-covered, rusted, crushed chassis that was that version of course, there were many Impalas used in the show, but was the one that was in the wreck, and he had found it off like in the weeds by the set. And there he was sitting in what remained of that crushed car. So that was pretty cool.
Something interesting for, I mean, we've got Bobby, who has a yard and a repair shop that Dean uses all the time. But Bobby has, unlike a lot of mechanics I've known in my life, Bobby doesn't have any real connection to vehicles. Most of the stuff he drives are kind of beat up and need paint jobs and things like that. And he is the one who really upset people in the beginning when in the second season, what was it? When he was, one of the times he was repairing Baby, and Bobby scoffs at it. Like, why are you spending all the time doing that? And take one of the other cars, kind of a thing. It was almost the attitude, and it was really interesting. It's like, no, this has to be fixed. But it's one of the things when they're on the lam, before they end up really on the lam and have to put Baby in, when they said witness protection. They were in trouble a lot before that, but they still drove a car that was pretty distinctive.
Yeah.
Suspension of disbelief then. That works out.
Well, you bring up Bobby's place, and I think one of the shocking things, like Lynn was saying, where the Impala gets T-boned by the tractor trailer, is Dean taking out his rage and frustration and hitting Baby with a crowbar.
Yeah.
That was almost domestic violence. It was so harsh because you knew that there was a real connection there. Yeah.
He was going to have to fix it too, though. You knew that.
Well, yeah, he was going to have to fix it, but taking out his frustrations on the car was so visceral. And then there was one episode where I think a demon keyed the car.
Yeah.
And they really did key the car for the show, and they said that Jensen was equally upset as Dean would have been to find out that they went through the metal, the paint all the way down to the metal, and he was just incensed.
Do you know how hard it is to get a smooth black paint job?
Yeah.
It is one of the, having dealt with it, it is one of the hardest paint jobs you could ever do, is a smooth black paint job.
So yeah, I remember both of those were just sort of like, damage to the Impala, please tell me no. Other episodes, other moments in Baby's life that really stick out in your mind. Michelle.
I think when it becomes the Sampala for a little bit. It's just because, Knight Rider was kind of an influence for the car itself, and so seeing that actually come into the screen and especially just with the I know that the lights were very reminiscent of Kit from Knight Rider, but it was still like you could see Sam's sass in those lights as they were going across the front. So yeah, that's another thing that really sticks out to me. Actually, Wrenn, one thing that you were saying about like the price of the car and whatnot, the interesting is that the 67 Caprice was the more like economy model. And really the only difference is that the back panel of the slope of the roof is really the defining kind of difference in that. And aside from the price, like you could pick up a Caprice that's fully done for 15 grand. Whereas if you try to do a 4-door hardtop Impala, you're out considerably more. I've been pricing them out for a long time. So this, again, car nut, car collector. Hence
the price since the show has gone through the roof.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Mopar girl, and I know that Mopars are damn near always expensive because they only made a couple thousand, often a lot of them. Of the specialty cars. The Impala, they made so many of them, and the price before the show was pretty cheap, but now they're not. You can't touch one for I've been looking too. Not for a bit. We'll see.
Yeah. Lynn, how about you?
I'm thinking about just making the back of the Caprice, just do a little sheet metal work on it. I think I can make it look good enough.
I was thinking of, I don't know what the episode is, but in season 3, when Dean, was it season 3? Yeah, season 3, when Dean's about to go to hell. And there's the episode where he's teaching Sam how to fix the Impala. And it's just such this poignant scene because it starts out and Sam thinks, oh, Dean is just really wanting to bond with me and like show me this. And then Dean's like, well, yeah, you're going to have to be the one to take care of her because I'm not going to be here. And it just changes in a split second to, oh my God, like, yeah, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want this car because I don't want it to mean that I've lost my brother. So baby is often used to kind of make an emotional point even more powerful in the show. She's such a symbol of so many things. And in that case, you know, a symbol of Dean sort of trying to be stoic and hand down sort of the family responsibilities, including the car, to his brother who doesn't want that responsibility because he's frantically trying to get Dean out of his deal at that point. So that's one of the most poignant baby scenes. Has the green cooler in it too. So it's has a couple of the really powerful emotional objects from the show in it.
What do you think, Alice?
I think we've mentioned this before, but you know, it's a swan song. You know, the Impala baby was one of the principal characters, technically the hero. She got to come in and be the hero and pull Sam out so that he could save the world and make his ultimate sacrifice there. I still just lose it every time I see that. And you know, that's woven in with you know, Chuck's whimsical story about her history and everything, and it's just so remarkable that you know, that episode being as important as it was, ending that 5-year myth arc of Eric Kripke's, for the Impala to get that much notoriety out of a script, that it was just awesome and fitting.
Well, you mentioned Swan Song, but when Dean rolls up with Rock of Ages blaring and then just steps out, hi guys, you know, like everybody meets up with Lucifer and Michael in a cemetery to have an epic showdown. Let's just get the gang together. That was awesome. And Lynn, when Dean comes back and he gets in the comes back from hell and he finds out Sam's got an iPod. And I didn't tell you you could douche it up and just rips it off and throws it in the back. But and that's just a moment in the show. But I think I read a fan fiction where it explained that Sam, when Dean was gone, couldn't listen to his tapes because it was too painful. Didn't want to listen to random stuff on the radio. It just didn't seem right, and couldn't deal with the silence. So the iPod was his way of coping. And when you looked at it that way, the iPod just made so much more sense and kind of hurt your heart. So
Also,
definitely, yeah.
I love that Sam was listening to Jason Manns. That's just very meta.
Yes, yes. Well, and somebody mentioned, you know, in the pilot, driving the Impala into the house with the woman who had drowned her children. Well, I had another moment like that when they let Meg drive it through the sign at when they went after Dick Roman and crash it through the sign. It's like, okay, Dean really wants vengeance if he's going to let baby get scratched and let a demon drive her. So that was a big moment. What else? Because the Impala has been in so many important episodes and taken war damage with them and gotten them out of scrapes. How about that awesome 180 in Croatoan when Jensen, you know, is evading the roadblock and just throws it into reverse and puts the pedal to the metal? That was an amazing drive.
Damn hard to do in a car that big.
Yeah, because it's gonna fishtail. Yeah. Other favorite shots, scenes, moments with baby or insights? Let's go back to Lynn.
Oh, you mentioned the 180. Now I'm thinking about the reverse 180 that he also did in Baby, which he was just so incredibly proud of, that we get to see from inside the car. And the the best thing about that, other than Jensen being so smug about it that, you know, he practiced it twice and then like totally nailed it, but the guest actress who's sitting next to him, who's on camera too, and the look on her face when he starts it, she's just sort of like, whoa, what are we doing? But I mean, it really does go to show that he really did become very proficient at driving that car, and really loved driving that car. I was thinking about the first time I was on the Supernatural set, they were filming a scene with Baby at night, and that was one of the first things that I saw them film, and it was so fascinating because Serge, the director of photography, came up and said, let us explain to you how we're going to make it look like this car is driving at night. And they had her up on like wood that was sort of like on a pivot, and so that they could make her rock a little bit. And then she wasn't moving at all, but they had actual crew members with lights who were like running to make it look like she was like moving and going past lights, and then they had water sprinkled on her to be rain. And it was all very, this was season 3, so it was pretty early on, and it was kind of primitive, but it was also like brilliant to see the way that actually came out, and to see how many people were actually involved in sort of being Baby's handlers, and, you know, making sure she was looking and moving exactly the way she should be. I just thought that was so fascinating, and it was so clear how much everybody on that cast and crew like respected and valued that car, and how much effort went into making her look just right.
Well, and Jensen talked about how in the early years, they didn't have the CGI, or they didn't have the budget for CGI. So they did all the practical effects. And that sounds exactly like what you're talking about, is the way people made Hollywood work before you could just slap a computer background on it. Yeah, that's a fantastic insight from getting to see it right there. Alice, how about you?
You know, not so much the show, but I just love how it inspires a lot of fans. The one that comes to mind is that I got this invite. There's a bunch of car owners get together on Facebook. They have either building their own Impalas or getting them built, or they've built their own Impala, and they're like, let's all get together, and we're gonna, for those that could drive their cars, it's like, let's meet up in Austin. We'll go to Jensen's Brewery. And they told me about it, and I'm like, I'm going to fly to Austin and take a look at this. And it was remarkable. It was so remarkable. These guys they all caravan to the brewery, one black Impala after another, a couple little different ones. Yertle was there too, which was awesome. And they just, they just parked there in the field at Jensen Brewery and hung out all afternoon and talked cars and talked Baby and lifted the hood and shared each other's cars with everyone. And then Jensen came out and inspected them all and greeted all these fans. And it was such a warm moment. And you think all this because of a car, but it was a special place in everyone's hearts, so much so that it inspires them to do things like this, and that's what sticks out to me mostly.
Okay, Wrenn, how about you? You're muted.
Okay, sorry. I think what it comes down to is that I really don't have an answer for that. Everyone else has picked mostly what I would have said already. Well, when was it? The end of Baby? Was it end of Baby? When Dean kisses Baby and apologizes to her, I think my favorite scenes, parts of things. But I don't have much more to say about that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm after tax season, so my brain is flipped in and out there for a few minutes.
That is okay, Michelle.
I'm kind of scrolling through Supernatural Wiki right now, just kind of jarring my memory on everything. One of the things that kind of sticks out for me is in the 200th episode with fan fiction, and when they pull the fake car out on stage. I used to be in technical theater and I've done high school theater, and there's times where we did grease and we built our own grease lightning. And like the pride that I felt when I saw that car pull out on stage and I was the one that built it, I'm like, yes, yes. Watching Dean / Jensen when they rolled that car out, when he was just like, oh my God, they value, or the story rather is, you know, made it so that the car is just as important really as the brothers. And then that also kind of reaffirms the whole relationship with the Samulet and, you know, with the brothers themselves. One other thing that I thought of when we were talking like before, when Dean smashed the car in season, or smashed the trunk, and you know, anytime it was defaced in season 1, when Sam first gets out the chalk and does the sigil on the back, Dean's like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? That's chalk. What are you doing to my baby? And so we even, I think that also makes the crowbar scene a bit more poignant when you see that, you know, Dean freaked out of the fact that Sam was doodling with chalk. Now he's done something much more profound, much more dangerous, much more abusive to his baby.
Well, and you know, a couple of people have mentioned, Alice was talking about the caravan to the Family Business Brewery. I've seen baby replicas at so many cons, and they're done so well. And I look at them and I think, okay, that is a real love of fandom for what you've put into that car, not only to buy it, but to you know, completely redo it, and it's pristine. It probably looks better than it did when it came off the assembly line. And then to outfit it with, you know, a cooler that is as close as they can get, and all of the weapons in the back, and the, you know, the coffee thermos, and all of the little tchotchkes that we've seen, you know, the box with the cassette tapes, all of the little things that we've seen in the show. And for someone to pour so much love and time and effort and money into a large prop, surely for the love of the show, just, you know, is remarkable. But when you stand next to baby and take a picture, you know, it's a pretty great photo op, and it feels like you are posing with one of the stars, because you are. So it's really an indelible part of the show. Well, folks, as usual, we have blown through our time. And so before we end, I do want to go around again, let everybody know where we can find you online, starting with Alice.
The WinchesterFamilyBusiness.com. You know, since the show has ended, we're not as active a group as we used to be, but I still write articles. I still have some 50-some episodes, old Supernatural episodes that I haven't done reviews for, that I'm trying to catch up with. And we do Walker, of course, a great Walker reviewer here for us, Gail. That's really where you're going to find me. I've kind of backed away from social media a lot, but I'm still always there.
Okay, Lynn.
Managed to back away from social media, so you can find me on pretty much all social media at Fangasm SPN. Also going back and doing write-ups, reviews of the Supernatural episodes that I haven't done, so that I'll have all 327 episodes soon, and doing Walker and doing The Boys. Can't keep up with everything that this cast is doing. You can also find my most recent books at the website peacewhenyouaredone.com.
And just think, Lynn, pretty soon we'll have the Winchesters and Walker Independents to keep up
I
with.
know, and Gotham Knights, and like they're just doing, they're a little bit too successful at this point. I can't like possibly review all these shows.
And con reports. I mean, you know, we are indeed have a surfeit of riches here. Yeah. Michelle, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at preheatingprof. Also, with the convention starting back up, I've kind of wanted to get it into a little bit of photography. So you'll see a handful of what I think are pretty decent photos up there on Twitter. And usually you can then also find me through Twitter, sitting here sipping my tea at the middle of the night, and usually messing around online doing some sort of nefarious things. But yes, Twitter, preheating prof.
Awesome. Wrenn.
Not much, I'm afraid. I'm mostly not public on social media. I'm around. I can be found at a lot of conventions. I can not supernatural conventions so much because creation doesn't usually invite the authors. But a lot of other media conventions I'm at with Keith. And we started up a small publishing company, which we are finally getting back into getting the stories through, Gail. So we will keep you informed about that. That is the plan since tax season is over for me. And that will work next. So we're going to be publishing a book, nothing to do with supernatural. Though Keith occasionally kicks a pitch out there for different things. He did the foreword of the John Winchester's journal that came out like a year ago, 2 years ago, and other things like that. But you know, it's fun. We might end up at a supernatural convention, not as a guest, probably just as, you know, showing up. And we'll talk about that later, Gail.
Awesome.
And because we do want to. It always matters to what the money and time, because he's away a lot. He was away the last 2 weekends. That's about it. I can be found in tandem with Keith DeCandido, whom I inexplicably married a couple of years ago. So.
And I'm pretty easy to find online, gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook. I do have a chapter in There'll Be Peace When You Are Done. And I'm a regular columnist for the Winchester Family Business, where I've written essential episode guides to all 15 seasons. And now I am a Walker reviewer and the occasional illustrated flash fan fiction writer with art by Catherine Curl. So we keep things pretty busy, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be more Supernatural coming up soon, so we'll see you online.